It's my great honor to welcome you to this important panel, Changing Security Environment of the Indo-Pacific and Challenge of Maritime Security. We don't have enough time today, as you know. So I introduce three presenters for this panel. My left-hand side, Professor Ji Yeon-jung and Professor Kim Ji-hye from, I'm sorry, Republic of Korea Naval Academy. And then our second speaker is Professor Chisako Masuo from Kyushu University in Japan. And then our third speaker is Professor Wang Juejue from Wuhan University in China. So I'll give you the 15 minutes for your presentation each. And then my right-hand side, three prominent scholars. First discussant is the Professor Jung Gu-yeon from Gangwon National University. And second discussant is Professor Oh Seung-hee from Korean National Diplomatic Academy. And the last discussant is Professor Kang Soo-jung from Joseon University. So we just move to the presentation, and then I will wrap up, and then I will add some comments on your papers. Okay, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for being with us. The theme we would like to bring it for the further discussion is deep sea mining competition in the Indian Ocean. I and my colleagues, my Professor Kim, are new to this subject, but we found it's very interesting to see how the competition is going to be intensified in this region. So the work of us is at the very initial stage, but we look forward to receiving your comments and critics. So we were exploring the many maritime domain issues, and we found that the many issues are being discussed right now at the maritime domain, and issues on the surface and under the surface as well. And besides the issues being talked about the undersea cables, but the deep sea mining competition is another emerging issue to see how the regional rivalry is being shaped and going on and going to be intensified in the future. So so within the domain of the deep sea mining, the Indian Ocean is an emerging region to be discussed because it's very vast region surrounded by the many countries, and the seabed in this region contains a huge size of the reserved resources. So deep sea mining is an emerging frontier that brings a discussion about the intersection of technology, strategy, and the sustainability. The deep sea mining is also the broader part of the discussion, as you can see in the slides, including the critical mineral global supply chain, the energy research, and the future technologies. So due to the importance of this area, the quantity of research on the deep sea mining competition has been exponentially increased, like you can see on the left graph, and the seabed resources mapping is actively undergoing as well, likewise on the right picture. So we raised the research questions like why has deep sea mining in the Indian Ocean become very important today, and who are the major players and what are they doing, and what tensions and risks lie ahead. So some of these questions are ready for the answers, and some other questions need to be developed more. So let me start with the question why we need to focus on the Indian Ocean today. So Indian Ocean is one of the most resource-rich regions and the geopolitically active region in the world. So it accounts for the 20% of the global ocean arena, and the more than 30 coastal and island states border it. So beneath the surface lies a vast deposit of the mineral resources, including the polymetallic nodules and sulfide deposits and cobalt-rich crust, which is known to be as CFCs. So these seabed reserves matters a lot because the land-based mineral reserves are declining. And the deep sea resources are emerging as strategic alternatives, especially for the critical minerals. So there are 5 hotspots you can see on the slide to looking into the Indian Ocean. There are including the Central Indian Ocean Basin, Southwest Indian Ridge, Mascarenes Plateau, Chagos Laccadive Ridge, and the Andaman Basin. So each area has a very unique natural environment and features. For instance, the Central Indian Ocean Basin that have been studied much are popular for the India and the China. You can see the mark on the huge circle with the orange color. And the Southwest Indian Ridge, for example, it welcomes the India and Russia's exploration activities here. And Mascarenes Plateau, located between the Madagascar and the Seychelles, France is showing the great interest here, especially through its overseas territories. And Chagos Laccadive Ridge, extending from the Maldives and the Chagos Archipelago, it overlaps with the multiple exclusive economic zones claims and major shipping routes. So this place also contains large mineral reserves. And the Andaman Basin, at last, near the Andaman Nicobar Islands, provides the high mineral promise and strategic military importance for India. So these 5 areas present not just a geological point, but also a geopolitical flashpoint. So who are involved and who are the major players here? And we can see the China and India. So China has been emerged as the most ambitious and the technological advanced player in the deep sea mining. So China integrates deep sea mining into the broader blue economic strategy and sees the deep ocean as a new frontier for both for the science and power projection. And China has 3 very well-known vehicles, including the Jianlong manned submersive and Qianlong series of the autonomous vehicles and the Henlong class of the remotely operated vehicles. And it supports these with advanced vessels like Shanghai Yihao and a strong institutional backbone such as the National Deep Sea Center in the Qingdao. So China is not stopping here. And China is building the manned deep sea station in the South China Sea, projected to reach 2,000 meters deep by 2030. And China has a COMRA. COMRA is a state-backed contractor, plays a pivotal role to earn the license from the International Seabed Authority. So China holds the multiple exploration contract through the COMRA, including the Central Indian Ocean Basin and the Clarion Clipper zone in the Pacific. And you can see the India here too on the chart. That in comparison to China, India is also making a very interesting move. In 2021, India launched a deep ocean mission with 6 pillars, from the mining technology to the biodiversity, climate monitoring. And India is focusing the Central Indian Ocean Basin, where India holds a 75,000 square kilometers exploration license under the International Seabed Authority. And India also launched institution like a National Institution of Ocean Technology that has developing the deep sea crawler vehicles and tested successfully at 6,000 meters below the surface. And India is also invest heavily on the advanced riser system and crawler system as well. So both countries are working very hard for the AI-powered mining system under the seabed. So they are observing that the real-time terrain mapping, obstacle avoidance, fleet coordination using the multi-agent system are very important to be joining in the deep sea mining competition. So they are heavily investing, and they are reorganizing the government institutions and review annually and biannually to how budget can be allotted very efficiently. But there are some challenges as well. For instance, that technologically still that this riser system and vessels need to fill the gap of the communication lags so that they can have smooth communication to work on the deep sea mining the technology. And scaling up the pilot test to industrial mining will require the massive investment and international cooperation as well. So therefore, actually it brings us to know that how deep sea mining competition nurtures friction points as well. So there are three major categories of the tension. The first one is legal uncertainty. The International Seabed Authority regulates deep sea mining under the UNCLOS, that the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. So International Seabed Authority already licensed over the 30 exploration licenses globally, including the India and China. But the legal framework, like mining code, is still incomplete. So some of the companies, like Nauru Ocean Resources, requested International Seabed Authority to complete the mining code so that there will be some kind of regulation and the rules to follow. But it has not been completed, passing the deadline of the mid-2023. So the result of this result of the incompletion makes some states to just work on the deep sea mining without any regulation. The second friction point is that the environmental risk is embedded within the deep sea mining activities, because deep ocean is very fragile and the mining can disturb the seabed environment overall. So not only the environmentalists, but also the political scientists and economists are also worried about the environmental risk that can disturb the entire ecosystem under the seabed. The last friction point we found is that there is a geopolitical stakes. Under the UNCLOS, the seabed resources are generally known as a common heritage of the mankind. But the critics argue that there are current system that favors technologically advanced states and private companies that beyond any regulation. So developing states risk being left out, and China favors rapid regulation under the state control, not yet under the ISA. And India wants some balance, but behind it all, the strategic rivalry is growing. So there is no regulation procedure or the rules applied for the enormously intensified competition. So at last, that I and my colleague, the Professor Kim, are exploring the challenging trend in the Indian Ocean, and we are also working more on the technological aspects to fill the gap to know about how the rivalry is now being shaped in the Indian Ocean. So let me stop here, and we'll look forward to receiving the more comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ji Yeon-jung. This paper investigates the intensifying competition over deep sea mining in the Indian Ocean, focusing on the India-China rivalry. There are three key arguments in this paper. The first one is deep sea mining is no longer a scientific curiosity, but a strategic imperative. The second one is China and India embody different strategic outlooks. China's focus is technological supremacy, state-led development, while India stresses environmental caution and multilateralism. The third argument is deep sea mining is legally, environmentally under-regulated, raising concerns over resource equity and ecological harm. You can find these three arguments in the paper. Okay, we don't have enough time, so I have to move to the second paper. The paper title is Japan's Maritime Security and ROK Japan Maritime Cooperation. Please, Professor Maso Chisako.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. I'm very honored to be able to come to Yosu finally. I live in Kyushu Island, and one of my favorite places to visit in Kyushu Island is Nagoya Castle, where Hideyoshi had the headquarters to invade Korea. So I always wanted to, visit Admiral Lee Sun-shin's the place where Admiral Lee Sun-shin had the headquarters. And finally, I'm able to come here. Thank you very much for the organizers for inviting me. And of course, Hideyoshi had a very, well, looking back now, he had a very silly and evil ambition over Korea. Actually, he attacked Korea, but his aim was to conquer the entire Eurasia. So he had a very grand ambition toward the entire this region. And unfortunately, sometimes some Japanese are quite afraid that some country may have similar grand ambition toward the world. So, how do I move the point? Okay, thank you. With regards to the maritime security of Japan, this map is from the Japanese Defense White Paper. And this shows where the ministry is concerned about in the nearby, Japan's vicinity. Almost everything except Korean Peninsula is about the maritime area. But probably, if we think of the seriousness of the issue, obviously the Senkaku Islands is one of the hot points for Japan. And recently, Japanese defense experts have been very worried about the Taiwan Strait. And also, China's advancement toward the Pacific. Last May, on May 3rd this year, there was airspace intrusion over Senkaku Island by China Coast Guard's helicopter flew from the CCG's boat. And this month, we had another huge event, China's military drill in the northwestern part of the Pacific. So this time, Liaoning, one of China's 3 aircraft carriers, entered into Minami Torishima Island, Japan's Minami Torishima Island's EEZ, and also Shantung, another aircraft, entered Okino Torishima Island's EEZ. So the 2 aircraft carriers conducted a simultaneous military drill, which was the very first time to see. Oops, sorry. Okay, so questions that I want to touch upon today. How is China challenging to Japan's maritime security? And what is the Chinese domestic mechanism for salami slicing? And based on those, I would like to talk about what will happen next and how can Japan and Korea cooperate with regards to those questions. So first, I would like to start from China's claims and behaviors. Well, although China often discusses that it has 3 million square kilometers of jurisdictional waters, it hasn't really shown a map to illustrate its claim. Actually, Chinese domestic statistics argue that actually half of it, 1.5 square kilometers, is disputed with other neighboring countries. And China has only demarked the Tonkin one with Vietnam, and all other parts are left, undemarked. So I think now South Korea is working hard to have this negotiation with China. And so we don't know where China is actually claiming. I would like to show several maps here. The first map is the one I traced from China's maritime specialist slides here they used in an international conference. So this map shows the image of China's third generation of maritime functional zoning China has used until 2021. It also has very interesting parts, like surrounding Taiwan, there is a blank. But beyond Taiwan, China has a claim. And with regards to the East China Sea, China is claiming most of it, but not all in this map. And I will show other two maps. So the one on the left is from China's maritime observation satellite, where the satellite is watching. So I think this area shows where the satellite is usually, watching on with regards to the East China Sea. The one on the right is is the only official map we can find on China's maritime claim. This is a map China submitted to the International Continental Shelf Committee. To apply for the extension of the continental shelf in the EEZ. So you can see that China has actually a very huge claim, almost approaching to the Kyushu island of Japan. So if this is to come true, Korea and Japan has no need to discuss our JDZ issue at all, because everything is China's. According to this claim. So, and another one is China's air claim, air defense identification zone claim. And I think I don't really need to explain this, but this, because this graph has been used by many Japanese, for sure. This shows how many ships China has been sending around Senkaku Islands. But it basically says that nowadays, China Coast Guard vessels basically stay in the contiguous zones of Senkaku Islands. Because they're there almost all the time, it looks like China has a domestic system to administer there to realize its claim over the islands. So in Senkaku Islands, there are many concerning situations, but I don't think I have time to explain those. But in short, the things, even though the news, I think there are not many international news, but the situation is not really stable. But China is gradually stepping up its salami slicing tactics. And well, I have too many slides here, but I need to cut down most of it. But here I just wanted to mention that China has been using its national programs to function its salami slicing tactics. So forming national programs have been very important measures for the Chinese bureaucracy to set up the goals to be realized within 5 or 10 or 12 years. And once they're set, those bureaucrats have to realize them, including the PLA. So we really need to understand what China is planning within those national programs. And I've been studying those. I've been spending a lot of time to study those. But from here, I would like to focus on Xi Jinping's integrated approach. He's a very unique figure who had spent almost 2 decades in China's coastal provinces. One Japanese scholar called Suzuki Takashi recently published a book. In that book, he collected many of Xi Jinping's essays and speeches from his very younger days. And surprisingly, Xi has started to propose that China needs to develop its maritime economy since 1989, which is much, much, much earlier than many Chinese cadres. So he has a very unique view to develop the ocean. And I don't have much time to explain, but if I can summarize his ocean policy, there are 2 features that are very important. One is integrated approach, bridging security, economy, and many other issues. So he has been implementing military civil fusion policy for quite many years. He's been using a lot of environmental, ecological protection and fishery management and many other civil issues to enhance China's presence. And another, the second of his feature is his weight on the maritime innovation so that China can produce more and more of maritime facilities and equipments. And with China's massive production capability, China can expand its maritime presence together with the PLA. So I don't have much time, but he has been, this is when he was visiting Sanya Oceanographic Research Institute on Hainan Island. And you can see on the left side, you can see the logo of Oceanic 3D Observation Network. And he has been keen on developing those new equipments. And he's also watching at this maritime drone. He's trying to connect China's maritime equipment together with the satellite technology. So that's also another thing he's been developing. And China has already started to operate 4 oceanic comprehensive test sites. And the one in Hainan is very interesting. This is a deep sea testing site to develop a lot of our deep sea equipment. China's behavior on Taiwan has been changing as well. Especially since the last year. And even though when President Ma Ying-jeou was there, Xi Jinping didn't want to mobilize its Coast Guard to tackle against the Taiwanese side. But now he uses the CCG quite often. So China's way of doing things are also changing. What will happen next? Sorry, I'm skipping so many slides. China will try to step up its maritime strategy starting from the next year. China has formed a national territorial spatial program that also integrates the ocean programs. But in the last 5 years, the program has been in a preparation period. And starting from the next year, it will enter into the implementation period. So things will be changing. This year, the Ministry of Natural Resources announced that, ordered the domestic organizations to upgrade the production capability of a lot of our oceanic generators. including the wind, tide, and salinity. Well, China has been developing a lot of electronic generators because China wants to, mobilize a lot of, electronic-driven equipment in the ocean. So the administration basically told the domestic organs to have large-scale production on those generators to develop remote islands and also the deep seas. And China has been, basically Professor Ji has already mentioned that China has been developing a lot of mining facilities, and the deep sea this article shows China is also developing a new deep sea spatial station that will be operated by 2030. So, so starting from the next year, and sorry, I forgot to say, but China is also developing large-scale aqua farm platform where tourists can also stay. So China is going to install those facilities in the South China Seas, for sure, almost sure, unfortunately, but perhaps in other parts of its jurisdictional water. And that is the type of changes we will have to face within the China's claiming jurisdictional water from next year. However, China is also have plans for the waters beyond the jurisdiction. So I think I will move to this slide. Last December, China has publicized the news that China will start a new deep sea mining in the water, in the high seas near Japan's Minami Torishima Island. But it's in high seas, and China had made the official application, which was already approved. So, so it is official and authorized. But the place is more than 5,000 meters deep. And China is going to collect mangan nodule, which is rich in rare metals. There is a rumor that the PLA vessels will accompany the mission and will have a more detailed scientific analysis of the surrounding environment. So you can see this military-civil fusion plan made by China in a very clever way. And we have seen this China's first military drill carried by the 2 aircraft carrier recently. So China is already trying to push its activities toward the deeper part of the Pacific. Another concerning issue is Cook Islands. So that was deep sea mining China would do alone. But last February, China made an agreement with Cook Islands to have new exploration in the deep sea within the Cook Islands EEZ. And there is the news says Kiribati and Nauru are also having similar negotiation with China. China is eyeing at those countries diplomatically already, but based on what we have heard about Minami Torishima, it is likely that China will dispatch the PLA vessels again to those waters. And this map shows where those plans. Minami Torishima Islands locate right in between Hawaii and Taiwan. So so that's where China is going to have this scientific detailed research about the water. That's on the pathway for American navies to support Taiwan if something happens on the island, right? So China is very clever, and this map on the left side, the map shows first island chain and second island chain. But China is already eyeing at beyond the deep beyond the second island chain, and that's the thing the country is going to have. I don't think I have much time left, but I think the two countries have to have more exchanges between the two sides to analyze China's maritime strategy. And I deeply hope for Korea to have a successful demarcation with China. Maritime demarcation with China, because that will help many Asian countries. Many countries are having problems with demarcating the ocean with China, but I think if Korean case goes first, then based on that principle, we can have much less stressful negotiation with China in the future. I would like to stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Chisako Maso. You address growing maritime security threats to Japan with a focus on China's expanding maritime activities. You mentioned in your presentation, China's salami slicing strategy has intensified tensions, particularly around the Senkaku Islands. Also, you argue in the presentation, Japan's ability to manage this challenge depends on not only its own defense strategy, but also on fostering regional partnerships, particularly with Korea. Thank you. Our third speaker is Professor Wang Jieje from Wuhan University. Please.
Yes, nice to meet you. Since learning Korean, I haven't given a speech in English for over 25 years. I hope you will forgive me for any inaccuracies I may make. The subject of my presentation today is pathways and the challenges of trilateral maritime cooperation among China, Japan, and the Republic of Korea. China, Japan, and Korea, as key coastal states in Northeast Asia, exhibit a complex dynamic of both cooperation and competition in maritime affairs. Properly addressing the maritime issues among these three countries is crucial not only for advising their respective national maritime development, but also for stressing security relations in the region. The theme of part one is potential approaches of trilateral maritime cooperation among China, Japan, and the Republic of Korea. Okay. In the context of maritime marine environmental protection and ecological governance, the first issue is coordinated marine pollution governance, primarily leveraging the tripartite environmental minister meetings mechanism. China, Japan, and Korea jointly advanced the Northwest Pacific Action Plan to collaborate on tide monitoring, oil spill preservation, and marine plastic waste management. The trilateral marine litter management cooperation mechanism initiated by Korea with support from China and Japan has facilitated multiple regional joint cleanup competence. The second issue is disputes over nuclear contaminated water disposal. The issue centers on Japan's release of Fukushima nuclear contaminated water into the ocean. Korea has demanded the establishment of a transparent data-sharing mechanism, while China has called for enhanced international oversight. The three countries are engaged in consultations regarding technical standards for marine radiation monitoring. In the context of fisheries resources management and sustainable development, for the fisher cooperation mechanism, China and Korea, along with Japan and Korea, has especially established bilateral fisheries agreement, creating joint conservation zones. Though enforcement disputes persisted, actually the three countries utilized a regular trilateral fisheries directors gentle meeting framework to coordinate fishing quotas and compact illegal and reported and regulated fishing activities. For marine ecological conservation, China, Japan, and Korea jointly participate in the partnerships in environmental management for the Sea of East Asia, collaborating on coral reef restoration and migratory fish species conservation initiative. The next issue is maritime security and emerging cooperation. The first is the joint cooperation mechanism. This includes conducting trilateral maritime search and rescue joint exercises, achieving their first comprehensive drill in 2023, while establish a coordination mechanism for export missions in the Gulf of Aden and counter piracy intelligence sharing. The next is shipping lane security cooperation. The three countries have reached fundamental consensus on safeguarding freedom for navigation in South China Sea. The fourth is blue economy and scientific and technological innovation. Marine energy development, joint R&D initiatives in offshore wind power, tidal energy, and related technologies, exemplary by projects such as the China-Korean Shandong offshore wind farm, polar and deep sea exploration, observe states of the Arctic Council. The three countries collaborate on reach related to the commercial application of Arctic shipping routes. They also exchange expertise to leverage their respective strengths in deep sea exploration technologies, such as Japan's cooperation in deep sea robotic technology. The fifth is regional ocean governance audition. First, for international rules, alignment, coordination, the application of legal frameworks such as exclusive economic zone, delimitation under the UNCLOS framework for multilateral platform coordination, aligning maritime security positions through mechanisms include the ASEAN Regional Forum. The theme of Part 2 is Challenges and Future Prospects for Trilateral Maritime Cooperation among China, Japan, and the Republic of Korea. Key challenges include sovereignty disputes, strategic competition, and domestic constraints. For the sovereignty disputes, persistent island disputes undermine the political foundation for cooperation. For the strategic competition, the U.S. Indo-Pacific strategy constrain the maritime policy autonomy of Japan and Korea. For the domestic constraints, maritime-related issues are prone to triggering nations' sentiment and bilateral tensions. Facing these challenges, there are also future cooperation prospects. The first, establish a China-Japan-Korean high-level dialogue mechanism on maritime affairs, prioritizing collaboration in low sensitivity areas, then jointly building a Northeast Asia marine big data platform to enable data sharing for environmental monitoring and navigation safety. Next, collaboratively developing new Arctic shipping routes to optimize regional energy transportation networks. Correct China, Japan, and Korea. Maritime cooperation is corrected by economic and environmental protection taking the lead, while protection security issue with caution. While maritime practical cooperation is non-traditional security areas. Moving forward, the three countries could leverage regional economic frameworks like RCEP to gradually advance maritime cooperation through multilateral approaches, while properly management external interference stemming from sovereignty disputes and major power competition. Thank you very much. 저 원래 한국어 발표인 줄 알았는데 갑자기 영어. 그래서 들어주셔서 고맙습니다. 고생 많이 하셨습니다.
Professor Wang Jie already told me she got a PhD in the Incheon University. So you stay here in Korea for 20 years, right? 7 years.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. She got a master's and PhD from the Incheon University, so she'd better speak the Korean rather than the English, she told me. This paper examines the evolving dynamics of maritime cooperation and competition among China, Japan, and South Korea. The three key coastal states in Northeast Asia. It outlines existing frameworks for trilateral collaboration in areas such as the marine environmental protection, fisheries management, maritime security, and technological innovation. To advance cooperation among three nations, Professor Wang proposes launching a high-level trilateral maritime dialogue mechanism, establishing a Northeast Asia marine big data platform and jointly developing Arctic shipping routes. Thank you very much. We finished the 3 paper presentations. Next, we move on to the discussion. So I don't know exactly. We have 7 minutes for each discussion.
5 minutes.
Okay, please. Professor Jung Gu-yeon from Gangwon National University give some comments on the first paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor. Given the time constraint, I will give like 5-minute comments. So I think this topic of deep sea mining is pretty interesting. I realized that there are still many issues in the maritime security to discuss and analyze and research still after years of research. So this deep sea mining is interesting. It's interesting in the sense that it is kind of a layering different domains. Professor Ji Yeon-jung and Professor Kim Ji-hye mentions that this is no longer not limited to the area of resource competitions, and also it is an area for strategy competition. So in that sense, I think you can have multiple perspectives in analyzing the dynamics and actors and patterns of conflict in those regions. So in that sense, I give like 3 questions and comments. First one is this. So as you mentioned, this deep sea mining is an area of resource competition, but at the same time, strategy competition. But these papers at this moment seems to be improved. It can be improved by providing how this deep sea mining activities can be securitized in the first place. As you mentioned, in this paper, you discussed China and India's strategy in addressing deep sea mining. And also you mentioned that China is kind of looking at this issue of deep sea mining from power projection perspective, which means that it will accompany like a undersea kind of awareness capability, sensing and data centers and everything. So I think you can elaborate more on how we can see this issue from a strategy kind of perspective, so that we can move on to another level, which is that why China is seeing this issue as a kind of strategic stakes. The second question is, second comment is related to the first one. So what is the patterns of kind of power politics in deep sea mining? As you can see, this is a strategy competition area, which means that there is some kind of patterns which might be different from other maritime security domains. Like there are so many areas in maritime security, like I'm working on, for instance, like undersea cable, and also there's a data security, cyber security, also maritime domain awareness. Each of them have different kind of patterns of competitions and patterns of interaction between actors. So what is the kind of patterns of actions in the deep sea mining, especially when we kind of count China into equation? Another question is related to the second one, is that wasn't there any conflict? This is just my personal kind of question. Wasn't there any kind of conflict when it comes to deep sea mining before China become more active actor in these regions? Because Indian Ocean is surrounded by multiple kind of actors, not only India and China, but also Southeast Asia and South Asia, also African countries. It's kind of vast kind of region. So I figured there might be some kind of conflict in the past, but advance of China as a kind of great power into the regions kind of make it as a kind of big stake for kind of great power competition. So that's my question. So is there any other previous dispute when it comes to deep sea mining in the regions? And the third, the next question is this. As I mentioned in the previous previously, that this is kind of dual or multiple layered activities. And deep sea mining is closely related to economic actors. not necessarily China, but India in this case can be related to more economic actors, not just government, but just commercial actors and enterprises. They might be involved in this process. Then, what is their incentive to engage in these activities? They might have different commercialized incentives, which might be different from strategic incentive of government. So, I think distinguishing these two interests might improve your kind of questions and your research effort to addressing these patterns of conflict. My last question is about United States. Yeah, as you mentioned, and many other actually speakers mentions about the role of the United States in the maritime domain in their papers. As you mentioned, United States is outside UNCLOS system. Of course, they mentions that many times they are complying with the provisions of UNCLOS, but they are not actually signing it. But still, United States has been a kind of dominant actors in the maritime security as well. So in this case, in the deep sea mining, of course, U.S. is a kind of also has economy actors inside. So what is the kind of role of the United States in this dynamic? So even though United States not directly intervening the conflict between India and China, but there must be some kind of role in terms of balancing or kind of gathering like-minded countries in these regions. So what is the role of the United States? I think that factor into your research could be a good contributions. Really last comment is that this is my just theoretical curiosity. So you mentioned that there are very few kind of conventions and rules and norms regarding deep sea mining. So is there any case that country actually comply with them? Kind of keep the kind of conventions and rules and norms, if there's any, and what is the condition under which they actually kind of follow the rules, and what is in other case violate the rules. I think elaborate that kind of theoretical condition might enhance your research in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Jung Gu-yeon. It's hard to answer, so you have to prepare for 10 minutes. Okay, Professor Oh Sung-hee, I'll give you 7 minutes.
7 minutes, okay. I'd like to thank Professor Maso for the excellent presentation. It offered a comprehensive understanding of China's evolving maritime strategy and provided a solid foundation for thinking about how Korea and Japan might cooperate in response. South Korea, like Japan, is increasingly facing maritime security challenges from China. One recent example is the installation of large buoys by China in the provisional measure shown, PMG, of the Yellow Sea and near the water around the Yedo. These actions highlight growing concerns over China's gray zone operations at sea. What was particularly striking in the presentation was how China's maritime strategy has evolved into a more systematic and institutionalized form of governance. It is no longer just about claims or naval presence, but about administrational control, digital infrastructure, and technological legitimacy. As Professor Maso explained, China has been actively implementing maritime development and control strategies, including the expansion of its claimed jurisdictional waters and militarization of the China Coast Guard and military civil fusion, or MCF, for maritime influence. Also, the digital governance and the establishment of a national spatial infrastructure, or NSI. These strategies include a silent expansion at sea and are steadily creating new points of friction with Japan and similar with Korea. To effectively respond to this trend, it is essential that Korea and Japan establish a comprehensive response system. I also found Professor Maso's analysis of China's gray zone strategy, particularly the salami slicing tactic, highly valuable. She clearly outlined how China's incremental actions, such as buoy placement or dispatching survey vessels, are supported by internal planning systems and governance mechanisms. China's gray zone tactics are not random provocations. They are part of a long-term state-driven project. In addition to salami slicing, China employs other tactics like the cabbage strategy, layering civilian and coast guards and military vessels to encircle maritime area. The fait accompli approach, the taking unilateral actions and then inducing negotiations or inaction, and targeted neglect, the provoking weaker nations while silencing others. These non-military, ambiguous, low-intensity provocations are difficult to regulate under existing frameworks. So how can countries like Korea and Japan respond? We must develop shared norms and joint standards for dealing with hybrid maritime threats. Now, what kind of the cooperation is feasible between Korea and Japan? And despite political sensibilities such as Dokdo and the JDG, we need to focus on practical trust building in maritime security. The potential avenues for cooperation include the technological cooperation and co-development in marine surveillance, and coordinated position in global norm-making on marine issues like deep sea mining or marine environment protection, freedom of navigation, and establishing a maritime monitoring network involving countries like Philippines, Vietnam, Taiwan, and India. So at the same time, I'd like to point that we should also consider areas for functional cooperation with China, particularly in the marine environmental protection, ocean observation and early disaster warning system, and fishery management and responses to the illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. These non-political and non-military domain could provide a common ground for dialogue, probably through trilateral summits or working level discussions among Korea, Japan, and China. So let me conclude with a brief note on the Korea-Japan JDG agreement. The termination became possible as of June 22nd this year, the last Sunday. While discussions appear to be paused for now, this case highlights the importance of quiet management of sensitive maritime issues amid rising regional tensions. The overlapping claims in water among Korea, China, and Japan may lead to further disputes. It is all the more urgent to explore more bilateral and multilateral cooperation models, not only among the three countries, but also with regional and extra-regional partners. So if you have any suggestions on how such cooperation can be pursued, I would greatly appreciate your insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, Professor Kang Soo-jung, please give some comments on Professor Wang's paper.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to join this session and hear such various perspectives from scholars from Korea, China, and Japan on maritime security in Indo-Pacific. As a scholar based in Korea, working on China-related issues, I have been particularly interested in maritime security and cooperation between Korea and China, and also between China and Japan as well. I found Professor Wang's presentation both interesting and important. I truly appreciate the comprehensive overview Professor Wang provided on the current state and potential of trilateral maritime cooperation, particularly from functionalist and programmatic perspective. Today, I would like to focus my comments on the potential and the limits of this functionalist approach to maritime security cooperation among Korea, Japan, and China. To begin with, I agree that one of the key starting points for cooperation is the shared perception of common threats. Issues such as marine pollution, ecological damage, and plastic waste, and natural disasters and IUU fishing are all problems that affect the three countries equally, and there's already a broad consensus that joint action is needed. Because these are less politically sensitive issues, they offer good opportunity to build cooperation. Topics like coral reef protection, managing migratory fish, or cleaning up plastic waste are also aligned with global agendas for substantial ocean development, which make them good, good areas for international cooperation. As Professor Wang mentioned, trilateral cooperation in these low sensitivity areas has already produced visible results. Initiatives like NALPEP and PEPSIA and TAM have created technical and management-based foundation for cooperation. And joint activities like marine litter cleaning up, search and rescue training, a good example of what we can achieve in this space. However, the big question is, this kind of cooperation lead to more meaningful progress in politically sensitive issues? Functionalism assumes that cooperation in tactical areas will slowly spill over into areas like security or diplomacy. But in reality, we haven't seen much of this happening in Northeast Asia. For example, even though environmental cooperation has been going on for decades, it hasn't led to any substantial progress on difficult issues like EEZ boundaries, territorial disputes, or freedom of navigation in South China Sea. So what we have now is more like parallel cooperation. We cooperate in one set of areas while conflicts continue in others. In fact, there's a strong political firework while conflict between functional issues and security concerns. We can work together on plastic waste, but joint Coast Guard patrols or naval drills in the same water would be politically impossible. So there are also power asymmetries that limit cooperation. In areas like maritime technology or blue economy, differences in capacity can easily turn cooperation into competition, or even trigger concerns about technological security. Another major issue is lack of institutional connections between different cooperation platforms. Existing frameworks like NALPEP or the trilateral fisheries meetings are mostly technical and operate independently. So there is no strong mechanism to link them, to connect management or to coordinate cross issues. So at the same time, trust building are often failed. A good example is Fukushima wastewater issue. Despite decades of environmental cooperation, Japan's unilateral decision to release the water damaged trust between the three countries. This showed how easily functional cooperation can be undermined by political decisions. So lastly, I'd like to talk about non-conflicts and asymmetric actions. Professor Wang mentioned that the three countries share some basic agreement on freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. However, I would respectfully suggest that the reality is more complicated. China continues to assert the 9-9 and has strengthened its control over the region through so-called gray zone tactics, like deploying Coast Guard vessels and building artificial structures. This directly conflicts with the UNCLOS-based approach supported by Japan and Korea. We are also seeing similar concerns in East China Sea and the Yellow Sea. China has been expanding its maritime activities, and some in Korea believe this is part of a broader strategy to treat the Yellow Sea as internal waters. The recent installation of structure in the Yellow Sea adds these concerns. So my question is, Professor Wang, how do you assess these regional worries about China's gray zone strategy? And do you think we can find a way to manage these tensions through institutional dialogues? And I'd like to follow up with a few more questions based on your presentation. First, while functional cooperation in less sensitive areas is clearly valuable, expanding it into politically sensitive areas like maritime boundaries or regional security, including maritime disputes and navigation of freedom of navigation in East and South China Seas, is much more difficult. So in your view, what specific conditions are needed for this kind of cooperation to spill over into those higher sensitivity areas? And would ongoing technical cooperation should be sufficient? Or do we need something more like formal trust building frameworks, legal agreements, or institutionalized crisis communication channels? And second, many cooperation platforms like NAOPAP, PAM, and the trilateral fisheries meetings operate independently. So do you think some kind of institutional linkage or redesign is necessary to create more integrated cooperation structure? One that can eventually support progress even on more sensitive issues. Lastly, as you know, trust between the three countries is easily damaged by actions perceived as unilateral or coercive. So what kind of practical competence building measures would be considered most realistic or helpful? For example, could regular information sharing and advance notice of maritime activities or mutual observation of STAR exercises can help reduce tensions? In closing, I'd like to emphasize that functional cooperation in less sensitive areas is a valuable starting point. But if we want to cooperate to expand and become more meaningful, we need more than just accumulated actions. Functionalism can be useful, but it won't automatically lead to deeper cooperation unless we actively address the political and strategic barriers that exist today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Kang Soo-jung. We have no time to lose, but I would like to give some chance to ask something and give some comments on the papers to the people, our colleagues on floor. Please raise your hand if you have any questions or comments on the panel. Oh, yeah, over there. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. My name is Hakin Lee. I come from Tokyo International University. I got a question for the whole panel because in the Western literature, there's a narrative regarding the increasing Chinese capability, both in economic area, for example, the deep sea mining, or maybe in the military area regarding the expansions, the tsunami tactics in the maritime area, security issue. So can I ask a question regarding, has China violated any international law or rules so far, which you can consider this is the creations of the security issues regarding China in the region? So this is something I want to just dig in depth regarding the existing literature narrative here. And then the second question I have would be, we have talked about cooperations, integrations in the region for a long time, China, South Korea, Japan. But it would be interesting to see that we have two papers. One suggests that there should be much more South Korea-Japan cooperation regarding the Chinese increasing capability. But then another paper actually would suggest that there would be trilateral cooperation. So I'm just curious, how could that kind of mechanism work out? For example, Professor Marshall, would you consider the trilateral cooperation would be something feasible that Japan and South Korea can consider? And then for Professor Wong, would it be something possible that China can do something to ease the tensions, which somehow Japan and South Korea, they have concerns regarding the Chinese latest policy? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is any other colleague to ask something? Okay. Okay, I'll give you 3 minutes to respond to the each discussant. Okay, you first. Yeah, Professor
Thank you.
Ji Yeon-jung, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Chung. And I initially expected to receive 3 questions, but the question has been multiplied to 6. No problem. So it was very interesting, and thank you very much for the questions and comments to improve our papers. In fact, we were very much concerned about how we can approach to these issues in relation to the economic and commercial purpose, as well as the security issues. And Professor Chung rightly focused on the point that how the deep sea mining competition has become a security kind in this region, and how we can understand about that. So that before the deep sea mining, that there are several vessels need to dispatch to the region to research about how the environmental arrangement can be made. And after that, deep sea mining mission-oriented vessels can be dispatched. And the ones that vessels are dispatched, then some of the naval supports can be made as well. So to combine your question to answer that, Professor Masao's one of her slides already showed that when the vessels are dispatched, that they need to sail it sometimes through the choke point and through the unusual shipping routes to reach the point to conduct deep sea mining activities. So that actually brings the issue about the security perspectives, that how the other competitors or how other countries, except for the countries involved in the deep sea mining activities, are looking into the matter to see the different vessels passing through their coastal areas or their shipping routes. So sharing the shipping routes or sharing the perspectives on the certain areas for the mining activities can inevitably call for security perspectives, that how one can share it or one can confront it to see the issues. And concerning to the deep sea mining competition and in China, not about China before that, for the other security domain issues like data security, data protection, and cyber security issues. In fact, for example, for the deep sea mining, that seabed mapping is yet to be completed. So for the seabed mining, seabed mapping, then you need to dispatch the vessels as well as the satellites linked to the vessels to see the undersea environment and the seabed floors, how it has been shaped and changing because the marine environment is very dynamic. So seabed floor, the mapping is changing very slowly but surely changing. So that requires a lot of data produced, collected, and processed and stored within some cloud or other infrastructure arrangements, so that it's also called for data-related or the cybersecurity-related infrastructure from the seabed to the outer space as well. So I guess that is very closely linked and also linked with the security matters as well. And with China and the US and other major actors, I would like to answer it all combined. So China is very much interested in this issue. Actually, the mining issue has been discussed further after the land mining production is declining. So one of the options being discussed was the outer space mining, which requires a lot of investment and the long-term plan. The other alternatives being discussed and processed right now is the deep sea mining. So that's why China is entering that, US is entering that, India and other developing countries are joining the race. So, but as I already mentioned, that we don't know the environmental risk yet. So a lot of surveys and investigation is going on. So some of the European countries like Germany and France think that we will declare the self-moratorium for the time for the deep sea mining, not disturbing the marine environment under the sea. But developing countries need to fill up their production for their sustainable economic growth, as well as to fulfill their big power ambition. So that China, India, and other developing countries actually do not declare any kind of moratorium for the deep sea mining. So there is a kind of different approaches going on. And we think that till now that the countries will continue to join the deep sea mining competition for the future until unless that other alternatives can be offered to alter the deep sea mining production. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Professor 마초 치사코. 예.
Maybe I may not be able to. I don't have a capacity to answer all of the questions, but yes, you are right. China has been very cautious not to infringe on the international law recently, because China also wants to gain international respect. And since the arbitration decision made by the PCA in 2016, China has been very cautious not to make very clear violation on the international law. That's very true. So that's why Xi Jinping, that partially explains why Xi Jinping is mobilizing the non-military fields to his maritime strategy. And China is becoming very clever. However, because of that situation, and because Xi Jinping mobilizes his authoritarian regime to that extreme, it's inviting the situation to become more and more of the competition of the two different regimes. Because what China is doing on the maritime side is not something democratic countries can pursue. So I think this shows a kind of new Cold War is already happening over the seas between China and many other democratic countries. And trilateral cooperation. It is true that maybe today we have talked more about Japan-Korea cooperation, but I think it's because the bilateral cooperation level is very low. I still remember Korean Sewol vessel sank. At that time, Japan Coast Guard, based in Fukuoka, was waiting to be called for help by the Korean side. So they were prepared. They prepared their boats to send to the southern part of Korea. But because of the political situations, Korea never invited, and Japan never helped. And I think that's a tragedy between the two countries. So we have. There is a huge room for the two countries to be able to do, like IUU fishing in the Japan Sea. All of a sudden, like 5 years ago, we've seen so many Chinese vessels chasing the squads, right? And the two countries didn't even exchange the information on that fishing, and I think that's really silly, because that's even out of the that's even infringing the Chinese domestic law. China should not purchase North Korean fishing rights according to the UN sanction, and China has an obligation to follow it domestically. So there are still many things that we are not doing. And another aspect, replying to Professor Oh's answer, I think we can do more on the cooperation towards cooperation on the foreign aid with regards to, first, the Pacific Island countries. I think that's also many the countries like Australia and New Zealand are also hoping for the two countries to do, and probably we can do the same towards many island countries in the Indian Ocean in future. Thank you very much. I will stop here.
Thank you very much, Professor Chisako Maso, and Professor Wang JJ. You want to use the Korean? You already asked me to. Okay.
I will give a short answer because of time. The pathway of China, Japan, and Korea to establish maritime cooperation, I think first is the political trust. Second, settled by means of international law. Third, understand the real China and our neighboring countries. 다음에 한국어로 간단하게 말씀드릴게요. 그 중의를 한 그 3구 그 해양 협력을 당연히 여러 가지 방법을 통해서 우리는 앞으로 추구를 해야 중요한 과제라고 생각합니다. 국제법으로 당연히 국제법 준수해야 되고, 그리고 특히 그 해양 분쟁 그 해결할 때는 우리 그 국제법 회원 그 가입 멤버들 지금은 비회원국 눈치를 보고 그 발언을 하고 있다고 너무 비우지 않아요. 그리고 두 번째는 중국 정부에서 그리고 중국 학자는 대부분 해양 협력을 대해서 이런 말이 있습니다. 분쟁을 유의하고 공동을 개발한다, 이런 말이 있거든요. 그래서 하루 이틀 동안 해결하지 못하는 문제는 우리 일단은 관두고 먼저 협력부터 지금 할 수 있는 것부터는 찾아보고, 그거는 제일 중요하다고, 분쟁은 천천히 해결해도 된다고 생각합니다. 그리고 당연히 중국에서는 win-win cooperation, win-win 정책 지금도 많이 추진하고 있거든요. 그래서 혹시 우리 학자도 이 소중한 자리를 만들어 주신 그 한국국제정치학회하고 한국국제교류재단 진심으로 감사드리고, 우리 학자들 모이고 당연히 협력할 수 있는 방법을 찾아야 되고, 왜냐하면 우리 정치인도 아니고 국가 그 정책 결정자도 아니라서, 그래서 더 좋은 방향, 더 좋은 방법 열심히 생각해보고 더 노력할 수 있도록 하겠습니다. 마지막으로 여러분은 진짜 우리는 인터넷 아니면 그냥 다른 수단을 통해서 진실 그 나라, 진실 이웃 나라 더 알아야 볼 수 있으면 좋겠다고 생각합니다. 왜냐하면 우리 진짜 이 나라를 그 평가할 때는 이 나라 오랫동안 살아야 되고, 이 나라의 상황은 정확하게 알아야 되고, 인터넷만 통해서 보면 충분하지 않다고 생각합니다. 네, 이상입니다. 감사합니다.
Okay, it's about time to finish, so I do not add some comments on the paper, so I finish this. I want to just wrap up this session. Thank you all for your thoughtful engagement and the attention throughout today's panel. As panelists and participants, I believe we've taken an important step toward reimagining maritime security, not just as a matter of deterrence or sovereignty, but as a platform for diplomacy, scientific innovation, and environmental stewardship. Thank you very much. I learned a lot about maritime security today. Thank you very much. I finished this session. Thank you very much.